Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to the Practical Stoic Podcast, where I give you practical Stoic advice for modern times. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/Simon Drew. I also do one-on-one mindset coaching, and you can book in your first free consultation by going to risetothegoodlife.com/coaching. On Facebook, you can join my group, the Practical Stoic Mastermind. But for now, enjoy this episode. Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to the Practical Stoic Podcast. And today we have one of my favorite people in the world on the podcast. We're having Sharon Lebell back here for another interview, more of a discussion this time. She actually reached out to me and she said, look, I've been thinking about a few things. I'd like to talk about a few things on your podcast, share a few ideas with your audience. And we just had a really wonderful conversation. And I really do hope that you enjoy it. I know that I absolutely loved it. She's such a wonderful person and always a pleasure to have here on the show. So for those of you who don't know Sharon Lebell, I'd highly recommend that you listen to the first interview that I did with her, which is episode number 84. So I highly recommend that you go back and listen to that. But for those of you who don't know about Sharon and don't want to go back and listen to that episode, Sharon is actually the author who took selected writings from Epictetus and put them together in modern language in a book called The Art of Living, which is one of my favorite translations of anything by Epictetus. So just a wonderful person, and I'm really excited for you to listen to this conversation. So without any further ado, I present to you Sharon Lebell. All right, so we have Sharon Lebell back on the podcast. She reached out and said, I've got some things that I want to talk about, and I'm so grateful. Sharon, I loved our last conversation, and everybody else did as well. We had some really beautiful feedback from it. You're just that kind of person who people love to love because you're so kind and gentle, and you do really have that pursuit of knowledge and wisdom in your life. And so we've just been talking before this interview, but what is it that's brought you back, and why do you want to have this conversation again? What have you been thinking about lately?
Well, if I were to essentialize what I've most been thinking about recently, it would be the question, what if when we get up in the morning tomorrow, we just decide we're not going to lie to ourselves or other people anymore. Lying in all of its iterations, by commission, by omission, by letting someone we're talking to who forms an impression about us or something we care about that is slightly off and we don't correct them. What would happen if we dropped all pretense and all the work that we put into managing our public presentational self, whether it be through face-to-face interaction or how we represent ourselves at one remove, say through social media. I've been kind of obsessed with this because more and more, and I suppose we should weave this back eventually to Stoicism because that's the bedrock.
We can take this wherever you want to go.
Thank you, Simon. But I observe that our culture is pushing us toward self-representation in the same way, well, in a way that's not all that different from Coca-Cola. You know, we're kind of becoming sort of walking advertisements of ourselves. And I almost wonder, and we'll never know, but of course there's been a lot of attention to the recent suicides of some very well-known and beloved people in the world. And we'll never know why they made the choices they did. But sometimes I wonder whether people carry a big weight inside themselves because we so long to be our unvarnished selves, to ourselves and to other people. And we're so afraid of doing that. We're so afraid someone's going to throw rotten tomatoes at us, or that we'll just discover something about ourselves that is either so repugnant we can't even take it in, or God forbid we discover we're completely ordinary. We're not special. Maybe we're not that significant. Maybe we're just us. So anyway, that's what comes to mind, is dare we tell the truth to ourselves and other people? And I don't mean reckless, unchecked self-revelation. I guess what people call TMI. I'm not talking about that. That's all I'll say for a moment.
So we shouldn't be encouraging people to just tell everybody on Facebook about their latest addiction, or like something that all these things that are plaguing their mind, or their latest desire that they know is completely wrong. But yeah, I agree with you on so many levels with what you're saying there. I was even thinking, you mentioned we've become kind of walking advertisements of ourselves. With social media, something that I heard that was interesting from Gary Vaynerchuk. For those who don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a very, very popular sort of a thought leader when it comes to social media and advertising and marketing, and incredible person. But something that he says is that with social media, every single person on earth has become their own media company. In that throughout the day, they'll be taking pictures, they'll be taking videos, they'll be posting it up. They're trying to put forward their, exactly what you said, advertising themselves. And even with myself, sometimes I'll be completely honest here. I'll come out and say that sometimes for example, when I go to climb a mountain, or when I go to take some pictures of a beautiful sunset or something, part of the thought process of will I do this today is, will I be able to post something really cool on Facebook so that I can so that I can show that I'm living a cool life. And I'm honest there, like that's absolutely part of my process. And I get very excited about the fact that, awesome, I've just climbed this mountain. I've taken some great pictures. I can't wait to put them up on Facebook or Instagram, even though my Instagram has about 5 pictures at the moment. I haven't done anything with it, but it's interesting. Social media has completely changed our lives, where we are constantly looking for, how can I make people think that I'm living a cool life? Even if you are just genuinely living a cool life, it plays into that, and you think, how can I show this? And people don't see the faults, but they see the cool stuff. And so that's why there is so much depression and suicide linked to social medias, for example, because you have, I've heard of kids as young as like 11 and 12 getting depression, or, even trying to commit suicide because, of their social media. They feel like, well, I'm guessing here, but you look on there and you think, oh wow, everybody has such amazing lives, and what am I doing? It's like, well, everybody's just normal. Everybody's exactly like you, just trying to put on the best face on these things. But I don't know if I took that anywhere with where what you were thinking, but I just thought I'd mention a few things.
I'm glad you did. I guess another way of saying what you just said is, we want to seem rather than be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That would be a perfect way of summarizing everything that I just said in the last 20 minutes of my spiel. in one sentence, definitely.
It was because it's an example of our all too humanness,
Yeah.
which is what is attractive about us. I mean, that's the paradox. I think, or else I surmise that we feel closer to people when we see more of a full spectrum of impulses and, the good, the bad, and the ugly, just
Yeah.
everything, as opposed to someone who's all polished and squeaky clean. But I think this idea of trying to be honest, and I think it's a very hard thing, but I think that is the beginning. That's the starting point of any kind of character development. And, I'm trying to swing back to Stoicism again, because that's nominally our connection. But if we can't be honest with ourselves and other people, then that effort to refine ourselves, where do you start that? It has to be predicated on actually knowing where you are and those areas of yourself that you would like to improve or that you would like to embrace more. What do you think?
No, I agree, and I think that's somewhere where the Stoics really went right. They did encourage us to have that self honesty and that self critique. But at the same time, I did a recent episode on this. Epictetus, he said, self honesty mixed with kindness. So,
Yes.
you have to be honest with all of your faults, but you also have to be kind and recognize that most people are not perfect. In fact, nobody is perfect, and you're going to mess up from time to time. If we're only honest with ourselves, then that's probably going to lead to anger and and just whatever the opposite of kindness is towards yourself. And that actually doesn't improve the process. We need to recognize that, yes, we are definitely not perfect. And I agree with what you said earlier. Like, we are drawn to people who are authentic with the world. It's something that we all long for. We want to hear people who are telling you, yes, I'm dealing with this struggle. Yes, I'm dealing with that struggle. Because, I mean, it's real, and it can help us in our own lives to know that other people are struggling with what you're struggling with. That's why in this podcast, I do this weekly, sometimes not weekly, but this podcast where I ask everybody in the audience a question about their life and Stoicism, and so they can talk about it. And sometimes the questions might be revealing, like, what's the thing that you struggle most with Stoicism, or what was a time in your life that you struggled, when you struggled and Stoicism helped you to get out of it, or even you just got out of it by yourself, so that we can hear from other people about what are the issues that you're dealing with. Because if you make it seem like this is an easy philosophy to implement into your life and that it's just going to be a magical solution, I think that, as you said earlier, it turns people away. Like, I think when we were talking before the podcast, you mentioned that, when people just say this is the solution and that's it, you kind of head to the door, because, like, there's so many different solutions for every single lifestyle. But yeah, it helps to know that other people go through these things, and you really do have to have that self-forgiveness and that self-kindness whenever you want to make life change.
Yes. I'm very lucky. I encounter that kind of authenticity of which you speak on a weekly basis when I play music for people who have blood cancers. I play music in a cancer ward for people who are being treated for leukemia or Hodgkin's disease, and they're waiting for various treatments. And So every week I'll be in this group of people from every walk of life, every age, every color, every language. And the only thing they have in common is that they're part of this club that no one wants to be part of, which is they have very serious life-threatening cancer. And it is, for me, the most joyful experience because they are the most straightforward, unvarnished people that I meet anywhere. They just tell you the truth. And we don't sit around talking about cancer or, and sometimes we'll just say, hey, let's sing a Johnny Cash song. But you know that they want to sing a Johnny Cash song, that they're not saying that in order to, or, there's none of these meta layers. It's just straightforward. And I don't know that there's any big point to what I'm saying, except that I think when we are aware of life's fragility, whether it's forced upon us because of life-threatening illness or otherwise, it's humbling enough to just see the beauty in all of the imperfection that's going on in front of us. And it really creates connection between people.
I agree. And I think there's some kind of perspective that people get when they get one of these life-threatening diseases or cancers. I've interviewed a couple of people who are survivors of cancer, and these people have just a beautiful perspective of life because they know that they're going to, at any moment they could have died, but they didn't, And so they know how valuable life is. And honestly, that's what I try to encourage with Stoicism. And that's what the Stoics did encourage. It was like, memento mori, remember that you're going to die. Because when you know that you could die tomorrow or you could die in 50 years, you understand that, now is the time to live properly. Now's the time. And Seneca was pretty open about, how he had so many faults and he had so many issues with himself that he wanted to fix. And that's something that he actually said. He said, I want my faults to die before I do, And so he was working on this, but he always had that on his mind. Like, I could die at any moment, so I should be working on this. But that didn't stop him from talking about his faults, or being honest there. And that's what I do really love about the Stoics. They're so authentic. Even Marcus Aurelius, so authentic with his troubles and what's bothering him and it's amazing. And it's something that I think really does inspire people with Stoicism. It brings them to it, because it's like, these were just, we have a slave who was teaching us how to live a good life. Then we have a super wealthy person who knew that he could lose it all, so he practiced poverty and just living simply. And then we have, the emperor of the Roman Empire, the most powerful person in the world, who had so many temptations, so many people coming to him, like you say, like, who are fake. They were only talking to him because they wanted something or because they wanted this to happen. And he knew that. And he was completely honest in his journals, and we shouldn't even be reading them because he didn't intend for it to be a book, but we're lucky that we do get to.
Yeah, you feel a little voyeurist.
Yeah.
Reading those meditations.
Yeah. But that's the thing, hey, like, that's what I love about Stoicism, is it encourages us to be authentic. But what I love about what you're saying today is that we've fallen away from that, and we are not like that. And we need to be. We need to come back to that authenticity.
Yeah, we're going to pay a big price, I think, if we don't remember to remember.
Well, I think we already have paid a big price.
Yes.
I think all you have to do is look at the most popular television today, the Kardashians, and it's really sad. Like, it's really sad to see how so many people are idolizing that way of life. And um, it, it's got to be damaging to society. It just has to be. Um, and that's kind of why I wanted to, you know, start this podcast. It's like taking people away from that kind of aspiration for your life. Like, what part of my body can I change to look better, or like what can I enhance, or what can I put on social media that'll make me look amazing, or how can I become more like the Kardashians, or let's move back to okay, how do you live a good life? What's really going to make you happy? Let's be honest here, and let's focus on philosophy, how to live a virtuous life, how to be wise, all these things that truly matter, as opposed to the things that really don't matter at all. And I mean, something that I encourage people all the time is there's this great Eleanor Roosevelt quote, and she said, what was it? What other people think of you is part of their evolution. What you think of yourself is part of your own evolution. It kind of encourages us to stop thinking about what other people are going to think about us and just start thinking about, what do you think about yourself? Start improving yourself, start getting better, be honest about where you're falling short, and don't worry about what other people think of you, because it doesn't matter at all. I've gone on many tangents here.
It doesn't matter at all. Yeah, all good tangents, for sure. Well, Simon, why do you think people hunger so much for heroes? You mentioned, somewhat facetiously or sadly, that for some people, say the Kardashians are heroes, but that does seem to be a pretty universal impulse to have heroes, be they athletic, hopefully moral, though that seems to be more rare these days.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? I know you're supposed to be interviewing me.
No.
That's something I think about a lot.
Yeah, well, I think it's I mean, we want somebody to show us the way. We want an example. And I know I always bring it back to Stoicism, and I will move away from it in a second, but the Stoics did often say we need somebody in our life to use as an example, some way to measure ourselves against. But I just think that the public discourse of what the public definition of what a hero is, with social media, with the internet, with everything that we're doing, where we are a media company, every single one of us, it's moved away from, say, astronauts, or even actually, I mean, in the day of the Stoics, philosophers were heroes. I mean, they were out there, they were the people in the public sharing this wisdom and changing people's lives. But we've moved away from, say, philosophers and astronauts and people doing incredible things and good politicians, and we've moved towards these people who have their face and then they're fake behind that. But these people who put on a show and put on this face, and I think it's just something that's happened. Like, ideally, I would want people moving away from the Kardashians and say, go to people like Elon Musk, who are just out there, like, changing the world no matter what happens, or
He's amazing.
people like my ultimate hero, Judge Judy, like, just just people who are genuinely awesome people who've done cool things, and they don't have to be millionaires. I mean, I had a podcast, I only did about 15 episodes, but it was called Searching for Good, where I would interview people. So I started by interviewing somebody who changed my life in a really positive way, who was kind of like a hero to me. And then I would interview somebody who changed their life in a positive way. And these weren't millionaires, these weren't crazy people, but in society, but it was just really good people. And I think everybody has an opportunity to be a hero to somebody else. But we tend to think that the hero has to have millions of dollars, or be an actor or an actress, or somebody famous, but I mean, actually, I might ask you, because I wanted to ask this in this podcast, like, who is somebody in your life who influenced you in an extremely positive way, and like, what was it about them that made them influence you in such a positive way? And I can almost guarantee that the answer isn't going to be somebody who is a multi-millionaire, owns a giant company, or somebody who's constantly posting on Facebook about how good their life is. It's maybe it is, but yeah, I don't know, who would that be for you?
You called it exactly right. And I haven't thought of this person in decades, but as soon as you brought up the question, I have no hesitation. Of course, my hero is Mr. Pasternak. Who's Mr. Pasternak? He was my grade 10 algebra teacher. He didn't wear superhero capes. There was nothing prepossessing about how he looked or presented himself. But he taught algebra with passion. In other words, he did what he was doing full out, and he dared to care about his students, about what he was doing, and he paid attention to what was going on and what people needed in the given moment. So I'm thinking, for example, I was not a star algebra student by any by any measure, and so one day I needed a little bit of help. Not during class, with my algebra work, and I remember he helped me with my algebra, helped me understand it on my terms, not on his. But then he said, Sharon, it seems like you like to think about a lot of different kinds of ideas, don't you? Or some such thing. I can't remember the conversation verbatim. Well, a couple weeks later, in my mailbox, there came a subscription to Harper's Magazine, which in those days was a magazine for people who wanted to think about the events of the day. And that open-handedness and that recognizing of what a child needed there, not that a Harper's Magazine subscription was the answer to what, but I'll never forget that. And it was a complete pivot point in my life, because it was such a confluence of things. I saw human goodness in a very imperfect casing, just, a high school, a well-intended, nice high school math teacher, but someone who was paying attention and caring. And it wasn't like he was some creeper who was singling out me. It's just he found a need and filled it, as they say more in the commercial world. Anyway, I still read Harper's Magazine. Yeah. Online. But yeah, anyway, so he's not my one big supersonic hero, but I guess I've gone on and on about this just because I agree with you, Simon. Our heroes are the people who show us the way. And they show it to us. They don't tell us. They show us. I think that's a very important distinction, because I think if there's anything if virtue really exists, it's not a concept, and
Mm.
it's not something you talk about. It's something that leaves evidence through deeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you?
No, I agree. I agree 100%. It's something that you have to show somebody. Is it like there's I always come back to quotes because I love quotes, but there's this
Yeah,
great
totally.
quote that says, I think it was Mark Twain, maybe, or someone else. But anyway, they said, children have never been very good at listening, but they never fail to imitate. You know, like
Yeah.
stop telling people what to do and start showing people what to do with your life, and oh my gosh, so many more people will listen, and they will do what you do. Um, and yeah, we do kind of live in a time of talking about ideas as opposed to showing them. Um, even in politics, I hate to get into politics, but it's like, oh my gosh, the examples that we have to live up to are pretty terrible across the broad
Yeah.
across the board. I mean, and then it's almost it's kind of hilarious how you see people who are like the funniest example I see. The funniest thing that I've ever seen was when that politician in one of the southern states who was against gay marriage his entire election his entire career got caught in a hotel room with a 16-year-old boy like smoking pot. You know, this is a perfect picture
You
of
can't
America right now.
make stuff up. Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's right. You
You
can't make
cannot
this
make.
stuff up. It's so funny. And this is so many people. They say one thing, but then they're off doing that, exactly what they say is wrong, or exactly what they say is not the right thing to do. And um, that's the society we live in, and that's kind of the opposite of Stoicism. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to share here with this podcast. It's like live the principles that you say that you want to live by, and I've done a couple of episodes on that. And be honest with yourself and be honest with the world about who you are and where you want to go. And um, yeah, I think honestly, what we have in all of these problems in society, honestly, I believe that we have a problem with philosophy. The general philosophy of how to live a good life has shifted so far from the truth. Um, we're constantly lied to about what we need to buy and what we need to get in order to be happy, and none of that leads to any sort of long-term happiness or fulfillment. And I think that both the positive and the negative part of the internet is that there's so much information out there. So many people, I think, are being marketed to constantly, and they're going on the wrong websites, the wrong places to get information. And so they're living really sad lives, in my opinion, because they really don't have true happiness. They're on Facebook seeing that, they're posting all these things about their lives, trying to make it seem like they're happy, but they're not. But I think so many people are using the internet to completely change their lives and to
Yes.
discover how to live a good life by searching for a good podcast, getting an audio book that they wouldn't have read otherwise, finding a good YouTube video. A YouTube video that completely transformed my life was a 4.5 hour lecture by Jim Rohn. And
No kidding.
yeah, I try to watch it at least once every couple of months. Um, but when I found that video, it's just, that's something I wouldn't have found otherwise. But thanks to the internet, I found this, and it's completely just life transforming. And like things like that make it so easy to actually find a better way to live your life. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword if you think about it. Like,
Yes.
you can lead
So
down. Yeah,
wherever you put your attention,
that's it. Yeah,
we have to guard where we put our attention.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
Because whatever we put our attention on kind of amplifies, doesn't it?
Mm,
A narrative unfolds
yeah.
step by step. Yeah.
Well, something that I offer to my clients whenever I coach them is this exercise of every night writing down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for that happened that day, right?
Yes.
And because so few people in the world actually take the time to look at their life and think, what am I grateful for? The
Yes.
general idea is, what's wrong with my life? And so we get stuck in this pattern, and that's exactly what you're saying there. What you focus on, where your attention goes, is exactly what you're going to see. I always say that the way that you perceive the world will change the way that the world presents itself to you. And so if you're constantly looking for the bad, then you will find it. The world will change how it presents itself to you. But what I've seen from my clients is they start writing down just 3 to 5 things every night. And they come back after a week and they say, like, I have changed the way that I see the world. Like, I'm seeing more opportunities to be grateful.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I know I'm going on another rant. I feel like this is an interview for me. I just keep on talking, but you're inspiring me with all of these ideas and these questions. But I know I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but there was this great experiment that I saw on YouTube once where they sent a few people out to live their day, and they told these people that we've set up some people who are going to give you opportunities to learn a valuable lesson about life, right? And so they basically staged these people at cafes or at their work, and they were going to interact with this person who was in the experiment and try to give them a lesson without them kind of knowing it. And then they sent another group out who they told the same thing, except they didn't actually have anybody who was out there staged to teach them a lesson. They just said there will be some people out there who are going to teach you something valuable. Both
Yes.
groups of people came back and said, well, this happened and I learned something here, and this happened and that was really interesting. Like, maybe I don't need to care about this so much anymore. Or maybe this is they both came back, even though one group actually had those people and the other didn't. So it just shows you what you
That's
expect out of
fascinating.
life will change the way it presents itself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Change the insides and the outsides change.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
We're preaching some truth on this episode, Sharon.
Speak it, brother.
Love
Speak
it.
it.
But
Look,
sorry, go on.
before I forget, because I love the example you gave uh, uh, to your coaching clients of writing down what they're grateful for. I'll mention, it puts me in mind of a practice that I have that people can take or leave. I every day I write a letter to someone. It could be someone I know. It could be someone I don't know. It could be someone I admire. It could be someone I've heard is going through a rough time. But what I write is some kind of well-wishing, mind you, sincere, something sincerely felt, well-wishing note to someone, perhaps uh, thanking them for something that, maybe it's someone I don't know, they wrote a book that mattered to me, or maybe it's a long-lost friend, or maybe it's a relative. But this simple act of everyday writing, first of all, just stopping the hustle bustle of life,
Hmm.
right? And doing that very archaic thing of picking up a pen and writing something and then mailing the letter. It is, my mood is always improved on the other side of doing this,
Hmm.
because all I'm thinking about are, what I love about this person, um, or it puts you in the frame of mind of gratitude, and it also connects you with other people, and people love to get letters.
Hmm.
It's staggering to them, because everybody now just gets junk mail, and
Yeah.
if you actually get a letter written on beautiful stationery, and I go kind of crazy and I use sealing wax.
Nice.
I decorate stuff, and it's, I don't know, some people might think it's silly, but it's a very meaningful part of my day, and it's made me close to a lot of people
Mm.
who I don't see on a regular basis.
I
Anyway,
love that. No,
just
I
an idea.
love that so much. Honestly, okay. The only thing that would stop me from doing that is my handwriting is embarrassing. But but that's such a beautiful habit, and I really hope that people do take you up on that. Um while we're speaking of habits, I was wondering if I could ask, do you have any other daily habits that you feel like contribute to your happiness, your fulfillment in life?
Yes.
Awesome.
Without a doubt, yoga. I do
Awesome.
yoga every day. It doesn't matter what is going on. I do
Mm.
yoga every day, and it has been completely transformative. Yeah, is that the word? Yeah,
That's the word. Yeah.
it's changed my life utterly. Um, it 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 um, it eliminates for me depression. It helps me think more clearly. Um, I feel like it makes me smarter. It's
Mm.
made me slimmer, strong. I mean, I'm crazy about yoga. But I'd be very quick to say that I don't think yoga is for everyone. I think the value that I get from it is simply what it animated your question to me, um, that it's a habit.
Mm.
And there's something so valuable about showing up for ourselves every day. Especially, I'm not a disciplined person. I'm not. But all you have to do is you do it one day, then you do it the next day, and it it just gives a kind of foundation of self confidence. I'm not even sure I can explain it,
Mm.
but I would really urge everyone to find something, whatever their something is, whether it's, macrame or, you know, hanging from rubber bands from the ceiling. I don't know, whatever it is, but there's something about that the daily doing that creates a kind of cohesion of
Mm.
heart and mind. And for me, it's been yoga. End of
Yeah.
story. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I love it. And look, it might not be for everybody, but it hopefully is for some people. Like, I think everybody should at least try it. It's just one of those things. It's kind of like meditation. Like, so many people recommend that you do this because they get good benefits out of it. And it, I kind of thought about something because I've been rewatching this Jim Rohn video, this 4.5 hour lecture on YouTube. I've been rewatching it lately, and something that he says is like every single discipline affects the rest of your disciplines. So, I mean, with something like yoga, uh, not only will it bring you greater, sort of peace throughout your day, a greater mindfulness, it'll affect everything else that you do. I'm sure you find that with your own life. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. It
Hmm.
affects everything.
Hmm.
And and I can't really explain it, but it does.
Hmm.
It really, really does. But
Yeah.
it's the doing of it. It's just like we said earlier, nothing matters unless you do it.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing or
Hmm.
whatever you believe in. Beliefs don't matter.
Hmm.
Beliefs are a dime a dozen. Do
Hmm.
something,
Yeah.
even a small thing. I think so often people think they have to make these grand, comprehensive changes in their life
Mm.
in order to experience things getting better. I like to pay attention to just doing one small thing differently.
Mm.
Just write someone a letter.
Yeah.
Just, really, really micro, so-called mundane things, because it's the aggregate of those things that I think is what, people would then call greatness or virtue or
Mm.
what have you. It's not some big thing.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Well,
That's
sometimes the smallest
a lot.
disciplines they lead to the biggest changes if you give them time and patience
Yeah.
and I think that something that I see a lot is people think that if I do this thing for a week, or if I do one giant big thing with my life, like the results from that discipline will last even if I'm not doing the discipline. And that's just not true. Like if
It's not
yoga
true.
brings you happiness and it brings you mindfulness and peace throughout your day, and then you stop doing it for a week and you start to think, wow, I'm really not feel like, I wish I just got the good results. It's not going to happen unless you do these daily disciplines. Um, and so I think what I encourage people to do as much as possible is find these disciplines throughout their day that are going to help them and stick to it, whether it's journaling or yoga or meditation or writing down a few things that you're grateful for. You shouldn't expect to get the results unless you do the action that brought you those results. And so stick to it. That's what you're doing with the yoga. And like you said, like if you don't do it every day, it's like you kind of notice it, right? Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, I think it bears saying that sometimes it doesn't feel that great.
Yeah.
Sometimes writing the card to someone isn't that cool. Or
Mm.
sometimes doing yoga isn't so great. Sometimes it's fabulous, but it's the repetition, and it's the accumulated effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the keeping it simple,
Hmm.
not trying to improve yourself along all these different lines and dimensions, but just being very reductive. I do yoga. I write cards.
Mm.
That's it. I'm doing the best I can, okay?
Well, you seem to be doing pretty well. You seem like a very
Back
happy
at
person.
I'm a lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree, and I feel very fortunate as well. And um, you know, I I wanted to go back to something because when you first emailed me saying I wanted to have a conversation again, and I was so excited to talk about some things with you, and you mentioned that you might want to talk about kind of Stoicism and philosophy, how it relates differently to men and women, um, and
Yeah.
some perspectives that you have on that. I don't know if you have time because I know I've been talking for about an hour now, but if you have time, I'd love to talk about that with you.
Let's try for a couple of
Yeah,
minutes.
let's do it.
Um, so philosophy and being a female. Well, of course, it has to be said that the great wisdom traditions so far have been written by men for men, and using in these texts examples of males who have there might be females, let's say in the Bible, or in choose your canon, it doesn't
Mm,
matter, but males in these wisdom traditions, they are the ones with agency. They
mm,
are the ones who make decisions and do things, and whose deeds were meant, they're fabulistic. They're supposed to teach us how to live. So what's a girl to do? How do
mm,
you relate to this stuff? Because male experience does not stand in for female experience, and females have all too human experiences that are so huge in their impact that we could all profit from talking about them more. What am I talking about? Well, I mean, for example, just the experience of giving birth
mm,
and having a, a child come out of you. That's not just a metaphor. It's huge.
mm,
It's huge. And that has not been part of, well, I'm not going to categorically say it's not in the literature, but as a transformative experience, or as a as moral teaching, birth and the capacity to give birth are not really given their due. One thing that is very interesting to me, and I guess we touched on this before we started going live here, is that so often in wisdom literature, including the Stoics, you have, when the male is presented as the universal wisdom thinker, so often you have that classic Joseph Campbell hero with a thousand faces story. You have the man who ventures out into the scary, indeterminate world and encounters various challenges, moral and otherwise, and through often vanquishing enemies, even if they're sort of inner enemies or his weaknesses. It's a story of war, really, and of going out into the world and then coming back. It's an adventure. It's an odyssey. Well, I think at an archetypal level, I'm not sure that that's the female story, because first of all, we can't live our lives, at least up till now, that expansively because of the threat of sexual and physical violence. You know, women do not own the night. Just as a little tributary here, I was driving back from the airport the other night with my husband, and it was very late. It was after midnight, and we were driving through San Francisco, and I noticed there were all kinds of people walking their dogs and such at night. And then I realized those aren't people. Those are men out walking their dogs and stuff. And it's something that I wouldn't dream of doing by myself. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the point is, although not all women allow themselves to be circumscribed in their lives because of male violence, it's still something that has to be a consideration in one's consciousness. So females live naturally in a much more vigilant way, in a more self-defended way, and they have to, even putting aside violence, there's always the possibility that you can get pregnant, which, you know, is so monumentally consequential. You know, we don't even have to explain that. And females, pretty much the world over, are ultimately and primarily responsible for the care of children and rearing them. But this now, to me, gets, forgive me, I'm going off in a lot of different directions.
No, it's fine.
I think, in a way, it's almost more important. I shouldn't rank order the sexes. That's too simplistic. It's essential that given the way our societies are ordered right now, I think it's essential that females be philosophers, be lovers of wisdom and deep thinkers, because for the most part, we are the transmitters of culture to our children. We're the main role model and contact for all the people in the world. Not all of them, of course. I know you can give all kinds of counterexamples. But by and large, who is teaching us how to be a person and what to value? It's women. And so anyway, this gets back to my just questioning that hero, man, seeker archetype as being appropriate for females or not. I think females live from a much more relational foundation. Though, I'm getting nervous because I don't want my statements to be taken as absolute. I don't want to polarize the sexes because we're all individuals and we express ourselves differently. Do you want to say something?
I'm loving everything that you're saying. I guess, I've talked about this kind of thing with Kai Whiting as well, another intellectual who's come on the show a couple of times. And what we kind of said is, yes, we may not have heard from a lot of women about Stoicism or philosophy in the past, but now that we know about this philosophy, like, women, this is your time to step up and say, okay, this is what works for me with Stoicism. This is what doesn't necessarily work. This is what relates to my story, and this is what doesn't. And contributing to the philosophy and contributing to the discussion around how to live a good life as much as possible. Even if you look at the personal development realm, and the people who are most vocal there and teaching people how to live a good life and how to become better people, the vast majority of people going and speaking and doing tours are men. And seeing as women are, basically half the population, you would hope that if there were women out there who were speaking and talking philosophy and teaching people how to live a good life, and they were relating with other women, you would hope that they would get more popular and they would gain some ground. And because seeing as we're both half and half, there should be just as much audience for a woman who wants to go and speak on philosophy as there is for a man who wants to go and speak on philosophy. So I think that the more women who get involved in philosophy and start making it their own and teaching, and I even think there's some amazing women who are coming out now so when I speak about the personal development realm, it's because I love like personal development books that can teach us how to live a better life and how to get ahead and become the people who we want to be. And I think of people like Carol Dweck, who just wrote this book called Mindset, who maybe 20 or 30 years ago she wouldn't have become that popular because it was really like a man's game, like this personal development, going and telling people how to live. But now really women have so much more of a voice than they ever have, and so they really need to step up to the plate. I'm sure you would agree, and really add to the story of our society about how to live a good life. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add there.
No, I agree with you. And come on, women, step on up. Tell us what works. Tell us what doesn't work. And let's all work together to make everything work.
Exactly. And I think it's I think that we're trying to foster a really good I think the right way to say it is, let's get more women adding to the story. The wrong way to say it is it's always been about men and we don't have a voice. It's like, well, you do have a voice. Women do have a voice in today's society. With the internet, women, you can go out there and start a YouTube channel talking about how to live a good life and talking about your struggles and the things that work for you. You can go out there and write a book. You can go out there and start a podcast. You can do whatever you want. And if there are people out there who will listen to you, which 50% of the world is women, so hopefully there's at least that many people who would listen to you. Then we have the opportunities to do this. So, now is the time, and that's what I love about what Kai Whiting said. He was like, add to the philosophy. We should all be trying to add our own stories to how philosophy is working for us and how Stoicism is working for us and how it's not. And even the Stoics said that Stoicism isn't something that will stay the same forever. When new pieces of information or science come out that tell us that one thing is true and that the old thing is not, we need to change and we need to adapt, and we need to always be searching for the right pieces of wisdom. So being a philosophy like that, I mean, we all have the opportunity to add to it and grow the philosophy.
Yes. Well, I have a favorite Stoic quote we could end with.
Go. Yeah, let's do that. I think that's a perfect way to end.
Here we go. So this is from Marcus's Meditations.
Awesome.
And here's what he says. Forget everything else. Keep hold of this alone and remember it. Each of us lives only now, this brief instant. The rest has been lived already or is impossible to see.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's a great quote. I think I've used it in an episode before, but man, it's so true. Yeah, just forget about what's gone on in the past. Now is the time. Right now.
Now's the time.
Yeah.
And now is, it may not be wide, but it's deep.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
It's
Sharon
yours.
Lebell sharing some truth.
Well,
Holla.
it's been a joy to speak to you, Simon.
Sharon,
always.
Yeah, as always, it's been awesome, and we're going to have you back really soon again. I think we need to make this a very regular thing, and I know that people are going to get so much from this episode, and yeah, it's awesome to talk to you. We'll talk to you again soon.
You bet. All good things. So long.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practical Stoic Podcast. I hope it's been valuable for you. And if you'd like to support the show, then you can go to patreon.com/Simon Drew. If you'd like to try mindset coaching with me, then you can book your first free consultation by going to risetothegoodlife.com/coaching. To join the community, just go to Facebook and search for the Practical Stoic Mastermind. The links to all of these places are included in the show notes, but for now, this is Simon Drew signing out.